never billed us. And then they sent us a bill saying that, or with the date of the, because we had to extend the builder's risk by 1 additional month because of the issuance of certificate of occupancy. So we had gotten that policy rental for about $500 for the additional month, and they never sent us the invoice until the next fiscal year. But they kept the previous fiscal year on the bill number. So in order to pay it, we have to go to a special town meeting.
Gotcha.
Because it's for previous year.
Yep.
Okay.
Any other questions?
What?
Any other questions or thoughts on that?
I don't know, I'm all set with that.
Fire department engine 4 replacement. See, the town will blank or take any other action relative to thereof. 500,000 and debt authorization. When you say debt authorization, are you saying we will be bonding this,
Bonding.
banning it, whatever we're
Yes.
doing to get the funds?
Yep, rolling a ban for 10 years is what the plan is.
One ban is ending, this year is our last payment on it, so they do pick that payment amount up for the fire engine, so we have the continued payment amount, level payment amount.
Do you plan on putting that annual payment amount against the
It would be against the
Tax
The
levy?
Yes,
Yeah,
but not till
or
next
as
fiscal
just
year.
a capital payment
as part of the tax.
from
levy.
free cash? Tax levies, what?
Yeah,
Part of
we're
the
talking
tax.
10 years, it'd be about a $60,000 hit under the tax levy each year for 10 years.
It's replacing a ban that's already on the tax levy, so it won't change the tax volume.
Which one's gone?
This is the sewer one.
Well, the sewer one's a 2.5% debt exclusion, so it's not really.
Is that
it's-
us or the
it's-
enterprise that technically has that?
It's technically into the enterprise, but we're underwriting it about $200,000 annually from the budget.
Alright, so that'll go away, we're saying that 200,000?
That will go away, but we won't be able to raise that through 2.5%. So we're still gonna be, through raise and appropriate, getting that 60,000 under what we currently raise and appropriate under 2.5.
Okay.
So the 200 plus we've been doing towards the sewer, that was on an exclusion? or
On an
that's-
exclusion, yep.
Okay. I was say, if it's not, we need to possibly start
So it
putting money
doesn't-
aside towards future, unless they're already doing it.
Right, I think they,
Because we're gonna be doing some revamping.
for sewer, yeah, they have, they did have a significant amount of, D&D from last year, so we'll see where they are after this year. We didn't eat it all up to offset their debt, so there should be some savings.
So we may need to do an exclusion for it, or we may just put it under the tax base.
I think we'll be able to fit it under the tax base. I was able to do a 5-year projection that showed that it was able to fit.
60,000 estimate?
Yeah,
Okay.
And they just.
And I know we need it, I'm sorry, it's not about that, it's just how we're funding
They
it.
just took it out of service again last week for a failed e-brake. You know, chalking it, you chalk a truck, you chalk the tires front and back, and everybody jokes about it, and people get lazy. You really have to with that truck now. You know, you'll find out it's not there when you come back. They've got
And
it
wherever
fi-
it
they've got
goes, it'll go fast and hard.
Well, they've got it fixed now. I mean, it's, you know, now that they have Kyle there full-time, he keeps up with the maintenance and keeps up with these things, so nothing's down long. But when they had the rod holes this year, that's when I started talking about getting rid of the brush truck and putting the money towards this instead, because as it is, it's gonna have to make the whole year. They couldn't get a truck for, I don't know, it's a couple 100 days out to order a truck, so even if we approve a truck and they go into purchasing a truck and they have it done by March, we're not gonna see it till almost this time next year. So it won't hit till next year's budget time, but they've gotta get the ball rolling there.
yeah, for where it's at, it's not enough to really have to wanna go for a 2.5 debt exclusion, you know, or even a capital exclusion, because if you try to do a capital exclusion in 1 year, it'd be a pretty heavy hit on the taxpayers. So I think if you roll a ban for 10 years, 60,000 a year, I think we have the excess levy capacity.
It won't even be that much, because the interest on it won't be, what's.
That's
our-
high interest,
Yeah,
that's with a
our-
5% interest, we
Yeah.
usually get 2.5.
Or less, yeah,
Yeah.
we should be able to get, but the interest should not be that significant on it.
Okay. Alrighty. So change from Elderbus to Mart.
Requested by the Council on Aging. She's been looking into this change because it's more, she feels that it's a better service that they can provide our seniors. I'll have her come and kind of explain the logistics of it, but basically the first step is for town, is a town meeting vote authorizing the change in transportation services, and then it would have to go to Mass DOT for their approval.
That's what we talked about when Hardwick was here, that the service they use goes to a lot more places than ours does.
Right.
And they're all more flexible.
Yeah, and Mart's the service that Hardwick has, so at least if we're having a shared Council on Aging, we at least have the same region, or the same transportation service. But
Now,
I'll defer to her.
the interesting part though is Hardwick is an island from Mart. Mart is everything Gardner to Fitchburg and a couple towns south, and that's it. And then all of a sudden Hardwick's this random one that just sticks out nowhere and isn't connected at all. Which might be the only reason they get the extra services, is because they have to in order to get them from Mart to Mart. I'm just saying, because if I'm correct, like, and you might know a little bit more about, I don't know if you do, but like the Worcester Regional, that technically Elder Bus is funded through the WRTA, if I'm correct, in this town. We can't go, what, more than 100 feet into Hardwick with that.
Right.
Like, and we need to stop wherever Mart would pick them up. But because Mart's an island, I think that's why they can travel further, like, because Mart can't come into here and do business in here. They can drive through, is my understanding. I do see the benefit, though, if we're sharing a senior center with Hardwick, who's under Mart, being under the same.
Especially busing back and forth between the
Makes it
cities.
easier to share those services and work it out.
And they could pick people up daily from Hardwick and bring them to the center here in return.
One thing I'd like them to explore, though, and this is something that came up when I went to a CMRPC regional that was all about transportation and other things, is apparently if you don't have a full bus with seniors, that bus can be used for veterans. And so you just need to set the schedule, and if veterans request assistance getting from point A to point B within that regional area, they can use that same bus to do it that the seniors are using.
While the seniors are on board, go on with it.
Yep.
maybe?
Or if there's no senior activity going on at that time, and we wanted to fund a veterans thing that brings like a handful of veterans to a veterans hospital and back or something, or again, I would like to explore the most we can get out of it, just so we know how best to use it if we can get it.
It'd be nice if it was available, if the seat's available, they could jump on and go someplace with it too, that would be helpful, I think.
Are we giving up, if I can, Matt, are we giving up anything, any monies that we put into Central Mass?
I don't have enough information right now to give you a good answer.
Yeah.
Let's see, I got this.
You say she's gonna bring this, more information to a meeting? So
Right.
Same
Okay.
as I'd said before, we can always strike an article from the
Yeah.
warrant table when we get there. But we need to keep it on now if we're gonna possibly do it, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I defer to her. I know she's done a lot of legwork to see the
She's a pretty
benefits.
smart woman. If she's got an idea to do it, it's probably right.
It's an interesting story how it got developed with Hardwick and,
Maybe he's saying something about,
Yes.
that there's a particular selectman or something that just said,
yes,
that's it.
there's a lot. It's a long, it's a long
Have to
story.
revisit that. And I also believe Eileen's got a lot of experience with Mark, because she's got a lot of experience in Gardner and the Templeton area, where she mentioned she had experience with the senior centers in those areas. So I'm guessing when it comes to the Mart system, networking, whatever it is,
We'll find out anyways.
which makes sense. Okay, so right now, if I'm correct, Articles 1, 2, 3, 4, we're supporting to put on here. Do we want to make a vote on those 4 now, to just include in the warrant? Or do we want more information on any of those 4?
Well, I want to include them, but we can keep going on and just do one. Well, it doesn't matter. Make a motion to approve Articles 1 through 4 for the warrant.
I'll second.
Call for a vote?
Aye.
Aye.
The time it takes to debate the other method, it's done. It doesn't make 9, we could do it one at a time. It doesn't
Right.
matter, too.
Article 5, amend Article 6 of June 19, 2018 annual town meeting. Please explain.
Alright, so this is for PEG Access Fund, the PEG Access Fund. I'm working with Ellen on this. Basically, we're looking right now at the differences between chapters 53E and a half, or chapter 53F and 3/4. 53E and a half requires that you set a spending limit on any revolving funds. But PEG falls under a different section section of that law. She has an IGR bulletin related to making sure that you set a spending limit for your revolving funds, but it's, I'm not clear as to whether or not you're totally required to set that spending limit under the 53F and 3/4 accounts. So we were working on this right before the meeting, so I wasn't able to get a final answer, but I figured we at least put this on the docket, before we get further clarification.
So what we're looking to do is set a spending limit on it.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Now, are all PEG Access Fund revenues done, or do we still have some more years left on that?
We have through the life of the contract, which goes.
Was it 10-year? We're about 2 years
Yeah.
into it, maybe.
At least another 8 years.
Okay. I would like to at least see also what we currently have as a balance when trying to determine the appropriate spending limit, just to at least get an
Well,
idea. When we get the numbers together and we're
We've
reviewing
set a
it.
spending limit, we don't have to spend it, it's just the most we will.
Right, but if the balance is, if we're lucky, like 50,000 or 100,000, I don't wanna say the spending limit's 50,000.
260.
I might be inclined to, because if something comes up, we want to do a big purchase on it, we limit ourselves at 10,000. For example, running fiber optic wire or something, I'd like to be able to spend it down. Doesn't mean we have
I
to.
mean, if those things are
But you see what I'm
potential, I'm with it, or if we
That-
move the whole
that's-
town hall over here, right, that's something that PEG could be used for?
Right, for.
Okay.
But
All
so we
right,
might
I
want
got
to,
you.
we might want to leave the volume available, we can, so our hands aren't tied if we come up across a project we can apply it to.
264,000 we had as of 8/23, and I think that we got another check for 60,000
Okay.
recently.
Is that a quarterly, annual
Quarterly.
type? Quarterly, okay, thank you.
And also, you never know if we get grant to do something, if we talk about expanding cable and maybe upgrading, like, who knows, the 5G stuff now on the poles, it's wireless to everybody, or upgrading to fiber optic, maybe we get a grant towards something, we match it out of this. I'm just saying, possibilities, they have the money to roll in if we can use a chunk before we limit too
Okay.
heavily on the spending amount.
That makes sense. Next one is amend solar bylaw. I'm guessing that's the draft that, or
Yes.
hopefully the final
Yeah.
soon to come.
Yeah, so Article 6, 7, and 8, and 9 were all planning board petitions.
Do you know what 9 is?
9 is to, let's see, right here. See if the town will vote to amend the vote taken June 19th by inserting the words provisional certificate of registration for a registered marijuana dispensary, the words for in the town of Barre. So I assume that it's making it more clear that the person who has the right to that license has to have had that certificate, that
Granted
in the town.
for the location in Barre.
Can't just be anybody who has that provisional certificate.
But that was a citizen's petition that was presented. Now someone else is presenting,
Amendment. So that's an amendment being
someone's trying to amend a previous citizen's petition article.
correct.
Okay. Do we know if that previous citizen is part of the request or even aware of the request?
I don't know. I received this
Okay.
on Thursday by email. I
Okay.
haven't followed up with the petitioner yet.
Good enough, and I'm not even saying right or wrong, I was just asking if they were at least picked up and called, because I'm guessing the intent of that was not either, that's not looking to change necessarily what I think the citizen originally wanted anyway, so. I just don't wanna surprise them.
Hopefully, we don't need the moratorium, I think the bylaw bylaws from the meeting the other night. I think they'll get the bylaws done in time. It
That-
wasn't far off, so.
Here's my position on this, Article 8, moratorium. Currently, a moratorium is prohibition.
Yes,
We've had a year and a half.
right.
We've already gone through 2. We're gonna go to a 3rd meeting to try to get a bylaw, correct? At least 2.
Right.
I think the bylaw's gonna go. I think they're ready with the bylaw. If the bylaw should.
The
This
reason-
would, this would be the second after the adoption of the full regulations.
If the bylaw should fail, we're gonna have to do something to a moratorium. We can't leave it open. And the moratorium would have to be until June, if the should fail on the floor. If the bylaw passes on the floor, then we strike Article 8.
Problem I have with this is we have people that are looking potentially to take steps personally to make, just like with the solar bylaw.
Right. this is
And if we
very
keep
limited.
pushing it out 6 months at a time,
Right, well, the goal is not to, but we need a fail-safe. This is one of those things, like I said.
it's
the
not a
transfer
fail
station-
safe. The town's 50-50. Even, what makes you think we're gonna get to a 67% vote? If the town is, every vote we've taken on recreational marijuana is 50-50. I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
No.
That's where I'm concerned.
The town's gonna come through with it sooner or later.
It's kind of like a rock and a hard place kind of
That's
thing.
why I'm
because
saying,
it's kinda
don't
like
put
a-
that on there.
Yeah.
You
I think
make
the-
it happen or you don't, or it won't. In other words, we need the town to know, you'll have no bylaw control, or you need to come together to make it work.
I guess the other thing is if it's-
Otherwise, it's moratorium to moratorium to moratorium, because no bylaw will pass if the town is so 50-50 split.
We could modify the moratorium,
It's possible.
make it less restrictive. Right now, it shuts the door down. We could modify the moratorium in a manner that allows the planning board and select board to issue a temporary license for sale or for something. In a
Certain
pla- in a-
aspects
in a
of
pla-
the industry.
In a place that we see fit. This would probably make people look at the restrictions that are gonna go into place and say, I'd rather have these than have those crazy guys up there just pick a spot at a meeting. So maybe we ought to modify the moratorium, so if it fails, the moratorium's not a shutdown anymore. We need it, we need something. I don't wanna leave the door wide open or shut it completely. But we can modify the moratorium. We have still a couple weeks.
You had a comment on this?
We have been talking about amending certain parts of the bylaw for the town meeting.
Yeah, and I know we need to
But there weren't that many.
make sure we put on this warrant some of the bylaws that would be coming from the Board of Selectmen. Kinda like we had talked about on the HCA process, and then in a way making us accountable so that we have to have those 2 public hearings minimum on an
Right.
HCA. We can't fast track something. Bring the planning board in to discuss site-specific things that would better work for the community in that location.
And they're included on the vote in the HCA.
Right. So that would be a 5 and a 3-member, so that's 8, and then the associate planning board member would be the
9.
final casting vote if we needed it. That's what we discussed. Anyway, I'm not saying that planning board walked away saying that sounds
And I
like
think
a
that's
winner,
all,
I
but
just,
but we also talked about pending approval from town council, and he said it looked good, moving some of those things into our agreement. In other words, when the restrictions said such a distance from schools and daycare and education facilities, then it listed a whole bunch of things, playgrounds, library, a bunch of other stuff, residences. And we're gonna take that group of those out and say, you know, the first 3, the schools and the education places, you need that distance. In the following places, the proximity of these places will be considered in the host community agreement.
right.
So we're putting some of that back on us, so we can be a little more subjective site-by-site requests for those, rather than just blindly block it out, because you can sell, an alcohol store can be where houses are and everything else, and near the library. There's really no reason this should be treated any different than alcohol, and I believe the state specifies it really shouldn't be treated differently than alcohol.
The state does a big thing saying you can't be more restrictive than you would with alcohol.
Right, so-
I think I've read that a couple times.
So to include those things would make it
You
more
were going
restrictive.
to make a list, and then we were gonna discuss the list, and then. we
Criteria we
work
would
the ins
review at
and
the
outs of
HCA.
it, And then
Right, and the
Yeah.
list being the process that people, so anyone could have a look at this list and say, here's what I have to do if I wanna do this process.
Right.
And the list is for us to follow, the list is for people to follow. First step, C, you know,
So you can weed
A,
out the
B, C.
people who don't wanna follow the list.
well, that, and they know where to go, so they're not jumping back and forth and getting stuff out of order.
Right.
You know, they've gotta see you guys for site approval and things before, and get permission and a host agreement with us before you get finalized, and then it comes back for the license. But the license is really,
And actually, once the HCA is done, there's not much we do left because it's all state licensing at that
Right.
point. But
but they've gotta get the
they
HCA.
will have to get back to the planning board again once they're actually ready to build and submit their plans. Because that's where the planning board's job will,
But
if
they
we
can
discussed
send
right,
that,
make sure
so
the
that's
HCA is met.
But making sure they understand the differences, so we make sure they've seen them, they make sure that they've seen us, they're in on the HCA, then they know they have to, once they have it, they have to go back when they have the license before they can build and deal with it and make sure they follow it.
But working together, I
But-
think we'd get a lot more accomplished.
Yeah.
I think so. And so
But
we
also
got a
wanna make
handful
sure
of things
people
this
know.
meetings between the both boards to get to where we want to for this meeting.
I'm confident we're gonna get a bylaw through, and if we make a moratorium much, much less restrictive, that's gonna encourage people to take the laws. I mean, the people who want the marijuana sales want the bylaws to be enforced, and they can go. The people that might vote it down because they don't wanna see sales, well, if they realize there's gonna be sales and it's unattractive compared to the bylaws, then we won't lose them from the bylaw vote. So I think we just need to make some sort of restrictions for moratorium, so it should stay on the warrant, but we need to decide exactly, maybe we discuss it at our next meeting, more exactly what we're gonna put into that moratorium, or what we're gonna remove from the old one that's out there.
I think we'll need Jim Baird there for that, because if you write a this is my understanding, if you write a moratorium, and let's say a temporary process for local approval would be up to the planning board, say, Board of Selectmen combined again to say, you wanna do this type of thing in this place,
And it shall stay in
without
effect until
a full
bylaws.
bylaw writing down all the details we're trying to put into the bylaw, the Attorney General may not approve that. Because what you're saying is it's a very subjective process we're gonna do based on zoning, and we're not even gonna tell you what it is. Because the town wouldn't agree.
And they
So I think all you can do on a moratorium really is say, we're putting a moratorium on retail storefronts, but we're opening the door for all types of processing and cultivation in particular zones. Which means you would have to have another bylaw ready to identify how you would control those other zones. Otherwise, it's just not a moratorium, it's again, you got no bylaw,
Forget to do that.
and we're gonna let anybody do what they want if they're gonna do outdoor cultivation or anything else, cause we still couldn't come to an agreement. But, and that's where I'm coming back, if you do a moratorium, someone reads the word moratorium, they may feel deceived if it's not truly a moratorium. So we do have to be careful how we word it, you're right.
And we'll read exactly what it is in the floor and make sure people understand. And we'll make sure they understand before they vote on 7, we'll make sure they understand that 8 is not as restrictive as they might think.
Right, and that's the best we can do. From my perspective, I don't know where you stand on that, Charlie, with the moratorium, and, because I
I think the way the
don't
bylaw's
think we
written-
can keep just saying, oh, let's have another moratorium because we didn't make it happen this time, and let's try again in 6 months. I'd rather people sit at the floor and debate and amend and get this right,
It's town
and just get it done, saying, there's no moratorium on the article, so, on the warrant. So if it's gonna take us 2 hours for everybody to figure out what's gonna make this work, we're here until it's done, or there's no bylaw. In other words, free roll.
Well, the
We
state-
give an HCA, they take off, and if
So
we
it's-
can't get another bylaw before they
To
come
that end,
before
the state
you.
rule the state rule would govern, so that means we'd have one per 5 liquor stores. And there's, wherever they get approval to put it,
No, that's a minimum, not a maximum.
a maximum,
It's a minimum
Say that.
20% of your retail,
no more than 20% of your.
it's a minimum. You cannot have less than 20% of retail marijuana stores based on the 20% of your alcohol package stores, off-site consumption alcohol sales.
I read that completely opposite. You shall have no more than one marijuana retail store. No more than 20% of the number of alcohol stores.
I read that in their bylaw, but in the general law, I read it the other way. So what they were saying is they came at the one line you can reach. No less than, and their bylaw draft said no more than, so they just landed on that line and said that's it. So I think the state's the other extreme.
Well, if
They're
it
just
is-
saying you can't be
well,
less.
If it is, then we'd have to have two, because you can't have no more than and no less than. If you have 6 package stores, 20% is more than one. So if you only allow one store, you allow less than 20%, you're in violation of the state, if that's correct. It would have to be 2.
Well, that's what I'm getting at, so we would have to double
So from 5
check
to 10
that.
would be 2, not 1. So yeah, we'd have to double check that, and we'd fall under the state
So
rule.
what you're saying is like, if you have 10 liquor stores, you could have 2 retail.
If you have 10, 9, 8, 7, or 6, you could have 2. If it says, if the state says, you must have at least 20%.
5 liquor stores means,
1 is
One.
20%.
Yeah.
6 liquor
What do we have,
stores,
4 or 3?
I know we got 3 up on the common at least.
We only have one.
We got
liquor
Marketplace,
store.
Russo's, is it 3 at the
Probably
common?
the amount that the town's authorized to.
So I
think
don't
it's only
think that would be.
There's
Two
a real
2
big
full
problem.
liquor stores in Barre.
yeah, but it's alcohol.
And that's another point,
Alcohol,
it may not be based on
consumption.
the total number of
So
licenses
we have to,
issued,
we
but
have
the
to have
total
marketplace, and
allowable.
we have to have,
Okay.
Quabbin Liquor, we have, I don't even know the new name,
Was
of the
it
liquor store down.
liquor or
Quabbin
alcohol?
Liquor, Dean Liquor, whatever the Quabbin
Or
name
just
is.
beer?
I'm sorry, what?
Would it be considered a
I
liquor
think
store,
both
like,
places,
you know, hard
both
liquor,
conveniences in
like,
South Barry.
buy
It's-
beer?
Any,
Any type of store that would sell any alcoholic product.
and you walk away with it, you don't drink it on
Okay,
site.
so there's more than-
So bars don't count, restaurants don't count.
So we might be.
Right,
authorized for
any-
something.
Like down in South Barry there, they have a,
Yeah, the market there,
general store,
We have to be careful
And
too,
they
if they say
sell,
we should have no less than
beer,
20%, and we're saying no more
That's
than
teas,
20%. Then
whatever,
our bylaws
but they
say
don't sell,
for
like,
7, we only have 1.
I don't know,
In the state
Green
bylaws
Marnier
say
or
for 6.
something.
right, they're not a hard, yeah, I know what you mean, they're a beer
Okay,
wine,
so
not a hard liquor,
it's
but it
just
still
Can't make a
counts.
considered
Contracts
alcohol,
and
not liquor.
Correct.
We have to be
Okay.
careful of that, if that's the case, so that may be.
Hey, I'm
that
sorry, I
may
didn't
be
mean to
amended
interrupt your
beforehand.
meeting.
If the state
I
law,
thought there was a
if
meeting.
that's right, the state law says.
Oh, the two-
Smell like gas.
No less than,
Okay,
I'll shut up and listen.
no, it's all right.
then we may have.
The
to
other
modify
thing,
the
just so you
bylaw.
know, if there's no moratorium or a bylaw in place, every state licensing
It's no more
thing
than 20%.
can go to any one of our commercial, limited business, or business commercial, or industrial, and just follow the existing zoning laws for those areas, and just set up shop with no special consideration.
11 through 15.
And,
Each increment of
and
5.
that's
Each
without
range
any,
of 5 alcohol stores would have that.
town bylaws, right?
Correct.
If we wind up with 6
That's
alcohol
something
stores,
that
we
the
fall into 2
planning board
range.
needs to know. They don't know that.
And we can limit
Right, and
it
that,
to 2,
but that's
we
also
can't-
why I'm saying,
States that
we
we go
can't
3,
also
4, 5.
continue to extend everything with a moratorium, because
So we need our bylaw to restrict it as much as we can. But
the
we
voting
still
right now
violate
is
the state's
literally like
So you understand if this
51 to
states-
49, and then 49 to 51.
Exactly.
How are you gonna get to 67%, which you need for a zoning bylaw? Well, you can't. Well, that doesn't mean you can prohibit via moratorium, because we already voted we're not prohibiting most marijuana in this town.
Right.
So I think if we try to do one more moratorium after this, after the states really already set their laws and regs, outside of delivery, I think. The rules are in place on the state, so us building our bylaws around them aren't something like we're waiting on the state, like we
No,
had
but-
been.
Did the state, like, I know there was one out in Leicester, and that was being held up for some reason. It was supposed to be like opened up a couple months ago. I don't know what, I don't know if it was because of testing or whatever. Or
That's my
their
understanding.
bylaws, but,
There's still not a licensed testing facility, so even if they've approved or issued licenses for
there
recreational
any
retail, it's not
licensed,
available yet.
retail facilities in Massachusetts yet?
I thought I heard just in the
Yeah.
last week they
I
awarded
think-
at least
Yeah,
one.
New York, Northampton, and one in Leicester.
Yeah, they were getting close to one, but
So, what I don't understand, and I'm not sure where the state's at, is you've had medical marijuana dispensaries that also required testing. I cannot, for the life of me, figure out how the testing for recreational marijuana would be more stringent than medical marijuana.
The
And so why
THC
someone with a
concept.
medical marijuana testing license from the Department of Health wouldn't be an automatic transfer?
Well, medical marijuana.
So that's where I do understand some people saying, oh, you're using that to hold up actual retail sales because you know one's needed for the other.
Well, a
And
lot of the medical marijuana is, a lot of it is that liquid that they squeeze out of it.
THC.
Yeah, but they're also making
CBD
edibles and
or
things now
something.
too.
Yeah,
Well, CBD is not regulated
Okay,
because it
but-
can be created from hemp. It
Okay.
doesn't fall under the CBD itself, I mean, I'm just in case you,
But
that's why you see that at a
they have
convenience store.
all different types of strains of marijuana, I found out. It's like, you know, they call it golden survival,
Yeah.
golden happiness or whatever. And they have to test each, you know, they probably have like 50 tubs of different things in there. And I'm sure they have to test each one and see how much THC's in there.
I think you're
And
right.
that's probably what's holding it up.
I don't know if they're testing for the concentration of THC as much as they're looking for contaminants, pesticides and things to make sure that's clean,
Oh.
I would think.
It might be a comprehensive test that does all of it. 'Cause
That
I
might
think the
make sense.
THC has to be tested because
To know the
they're
potency.
concerned, right, about the potency and who's buying what and what they're getting for what they
And I
buy.
think-
How much
think-
they can
It's
sell
like the
it
percent
for,
alcohol in
too.
a beer
But
has to
once
be on the
I think for
beer.
medical, that's more crucial. I think recreation, they're probably less stringent on that.
Recreational,
I think it's just like
less
beer, though.
THC,
Percent alcohol.
and lower,
It's just listed, yeah,
more THC would cost more, right?
possibly. I
So
don't know.
that might be a pricing thing too, for tax purposes.
That might just come down to what flavor of beer do you like. I like my 7%, it tastes like alcohol, but it's really a beer, versus my 4% that tastes like water.
I like whiskey. It tastes like whiskey.
Scotch is good. That's my thing.
So the official guidance from the Cannabis Control Commission says, a municipality may pass a bylaw or ordinance limiting the number of marijuana retailers to 20% or more of the number of liquor licenses issued pursuant to MGL 138, Section 15. So I think,
So it's back down
It
to a
says they
minimum
may,
of
doesn't say-
20%.
It says they
But-
may, not they must.
right, but if you reduce it by any less than 20%, that's when you have to go to a to a town meeting vote and the ballot.
Right.
Same as a ban. They
Yeah.
treat it as if you're gonna restrict it any more than 20%, you have to treat it as a ban.
And there's my concern for ours. I mean, if we should wind up with 6 stores selling alcohol, and we have 1 in 6, we're about 16.5%.
Mhm.
We're less than 20%. Strictly by the numbers.
Right. So we'd have to go to 2 or 3 and
Or-
that's why,
Or we'd have to rewrite the law to say that, you know, but well, if the state wants it to be, we just have to go to the town meeting and put it to ballot vote after to make it stay, but that means we put out the law still, or at least that portion of it.
and so what I would recommend is, one, we talked about taking that out of the planning bylaw, putting it in our bylaw, speaking of licensing, number of licenses, because that's a general bylaw, not a zoning bylaw. Because that would fall under the jurisdiction of the Board of Selectmen in a way, like most of our business licensing
With
process.
the licensing authority, so that.
So-
probably is
That
something
is
we could do.
issued package store licenses, both beer and
Issued,
wine.
not available.
Yeah,
Okay.
issued, not available, yep.
So we just need to clarify what that number is, because we may want to put.
I believe we're only at 5, but
Well, again,
I think we have 2 convenience and South.
random convenience store sells just 2 brands of beer, all of a sudden you forget they have that license, so.
I don't think anybody does, well, we can go through the
You
license.
got the general store, but is there one down in Berry Plains? Do they sell beer out of their convenience store next to the,
No,
I don't think
is that
No,
down
I
near
don't
Sal's?
believe so.
No?
Well, here's the
Okay.
question,
Because that would have been the one that I thought put us over the top, because you got the
isn't Stone Cow now selling canned beer to take?
agricultural license though, so I don't think we get stuck on that, am I right?
They're under chapter 12,
But is this,
section 12 license, not section.
Carter Stevens Farm though. that might be a liquor license that is not, because they didn't have the brewery at the time they were selling it. So I don't know if they could have supported that by an agricultural product without getting a license.
But do they actually sell it? You can walk out with a six-pack with it?
Yeah,
They do now.
Now, see, that's a confusing thing, because they're under 61A, and they have these frog jump things and all this. They're doing so much commercial stuff, and they're under 61A, and, you know, a lot of the townspeople's taxes, you know, are helping them out.
Yeah.
And they do get grants from the federal government to help them out, too. Like,
I'm sure they still need to prove,
I'll shut
Yeah.
up on that one.
they need to prove that
But-
51% of their income comes from agriculture, and if it does, especially if they're counting the beer as it, I'm sure it's helping keep them under the cap. They just
I've
need
never
50.
seen a beer bottle utter.
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't make the rules.
no,
of what's
it's because
considered
they're growing hops on site now.
Oh,
So when you see the poles on the strings and they're growing hops, that means they're supporting the brewery. And it fits under the agricultural products, sales and of your agricultural products. So that part, I understand the logic is what I'm saying. I'm not saying I know all the actual words and laws, but I understand the logic why they would, whatever Department of Agricultural Resources would say, that's not outside of 61A.
right.
But Carter Stevens originally was selling beer prior to having a brewery on site, if I recall right.
But I don't think, were they?
Yeah, if you went like
Yeah, they-
to the left,
yeah,
back
they
to
used to
their
go through
lunch
the
serving
sandwiches.
counter that used to be in the back of the Carter Stevens Market,
They should-
on your right were the coolers
should
that had
be
all
able
the
to do
beer.
You get the grinders?
They had a license from us.
Oh, they did, okay.
So that's why, I mean, they may still have that license, cause it may still, they're not selling only just their own beer.
Yeah, if they're still selling something, so that would be up to 6, which would open up to a second marijuana shop.
So, which means that's something we gotta consider in the process, but we've kinda beat that all up. I think we can carry most of this into another meeting that's really specific again about
Yes,
Board of
definitely.
Selectmen planning, marijuana, and how we need to,
And we just
Hash
have
that
to
out.
say 20% in rounding up on partials, you know? And it-
19C license.
19C is the,
So they're
Brewery
maybe
license?
a 19C, not a chapter 15.
okay. And chapter 15 is everybody else's normal,
Okay, yeah,
okay.
right, and that's the one that they're basing it off of, it's 15.
So we're leaning towards striking the moratorium and letting the state laws kick in if we can't pass?
Well, that's where I was leaning, and I wanted to have the discussion. I mean, we can, again, leave it here if you two think it's better to leave it here. But we're really starting to walk a line of just prohibiting it. And we get through this special town meeting, the last thing I want to be is the guy that is constantly being harassed by everybody saying, now you're part of the problem too, because you continue to let them just continue it, so we just don't do business because they want to regulate us, but they can't create rules that regulate us. And that's the whole intent of needing the 2/3 vote on bylaws, so that a simple majority can't just tell the rest of the town what to do.
We do have the right to strike that article, do we not? It's not a petition, we can strike another board's article.
Yeah. And that's why I brought it up. I mean, I'm not trying to beat you guys up with the requests. I'm just saying, I think we're reaching a point where we just gotta come to a head and live with the consequences, and we need to make sure the whole town understands that. You know, I'm not trying to sneak this through, I'm trying to say,
This isn't going to print till sometime in November,
Right,
right?
this is just to get.
Why don't we leave it on for now? We can
Yeah.
always open and close and take it off later. I'd like to discuss it with the board before we do it without them, in case there's something we're not seeing for logic behind it.
okay.
But I think I'm supporting your idea of taking it off because of that. The state laws are there for protection, it's minimal, but it's there.
I mean, the state laws even have that 500 feet away from the schools and stuff, we just added the additional,
Right.
well, right.
But let's plan to take it off, but let's leave it on for now. We can always open the warrant and take it off later. But I'd like to be able to confirm with the planning board before we do, in case there's something we're not aware of as to why it's on there.
Okay. All right, then.
I'm here mistakenly, may I be excused?
You can leave whatever you want.
No, we're supposed
But
to-
thank you for coming here.
Oh, it was Conservation Commission and I was.
But you signed in, right? Because you were here. You did have input. People say, who's that guy? Oh, he didn't sign in.
Yeah, I need that.
Thank you.
Reason for attending, mistake.
So,
Isn't it right?
that being the case, we have Articles 6 through 9, all presented by the planning board. Do we also agree with approving those or putting them on the warrant at the
Well,
moment?
Article 5 is what we did 1 through 4 earlier.
Okay. 5 through 9.
So I'll make a motion to place Articles 5 through 9 as they are on the warrant.
Second.
Second. Okay, now the last one that isn't on the draft warrant, but is on the side thing, we
Are
did
we
get,
voting on that motion?
Page 2.
oh,
Thank
vote, yes.
Aye.
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 Okay, so
Thank
we have
you.
9.
I'm sorry,
Now we can do
Page
that.
2.
Is it? Oh, I didn't see the article up. Okay. Article 10. Permanent basketball hoop to be installed in Nornay Park. This is another citizen petition that apparently for a special town meeting came with approximately, yet not completely verified, 160 signatures.
Needs how many?
200 to be forced on,
183.
183
From what I
verified.
understand, because I read up on these requirements for the town meetings and for the warrants, and it basically says that we shall not put a warrant on without the signatures, unless it really is our warrant. This is not ours. And the rules govern it basically say we shall not put it on. If it's not
It's
ours.
100 signatures,
we
not
shall.
200?
That's for the town clerk's office.
So if it needs 100 and they have it, then we shall put it on. It's as simple as that.
Maybe it's
We're
a
not supposed to
specific
take
item
theirs
that I
and put it on
remember
as a
200
It
for.
might have been to force a town meeting. Or to
Okay.
call for a town meeting, it might have been 200, but to place a warrant article for a special.
100 does sound more familiar.
Yeah.
It's 10.
10 and
for-
100.
10 for the regular
Okay.
100.
Yeah, whichever is a small
All right.
number.
So it sounds like
They'll be verified once we accept it, they're gonna be verified.
they were submitted and they verified, clerk's office verified that she met the minimum number.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's,
Then
that's it.
then we don't have any to say, that's on the warrant.
Then it is on the warrant because the
Actually,
signatures force it on.
Thank you.
Motion to approve Article 10 for the warrant.
Second.
Call for vote.
Aye.
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 The language and everything is none of our business. Our job is to place it and nothing else.
Well, we got a little bit more to go there to figure out some questions about whether the language was consistently the same language through every signature. There were questions about that. Did it get amended in the process of talking to all the people? And somebody said you should write it this way. Then the next 50 signatures may have come in under a different pretense. I'm just saying,
Well, let me see.
I have heard that. I'm not saying it's
Are they on
accurate.
signatory pages?
No, but I'm not saying that.
There's, I mean, they're supposed to be on, but she's approved them, I thought they had to be on the signatory pages that had the writing on it.
What we need to do is look at,
You know what I mean, if you're,
Right.
do we
That's
have
the
the wording that was not edited? Is there a page with wording that was unedited, or is the page edited with the wording?
That is the packet that was
Okay.
submitted to me.
Once
So
again, if we
anything
see
else
the second page there.
That material.
if we discover it's been done improperly, it can be removed.
It
Like
would actually be the board of registrars that would have to do the investigation and make a determination on it.
What was our open warrant period anyway? May 19th, October 4th?
That was submitted about 2 days after you guys had opened the warrant.
Okay.
That's when they came in quick.
To see if the town of Barre will vote to have permanent basketball hoop installed in a park area and its children can
So I
have a
don't
safe
think
place
they're
to play.
required to pull. Certain issues like a recall, you have to get ballots and things and spell out how to do it. I think for a petition, you just need to get your signatures verified.
Believe it or not, it's not
It's-
it's not
it's-
an amendment to any section of law, and there's no funding appropriation attached to it, so ultimately, it's a request. And there's really not much legally binding Cause even if it was passed by town meeting and then said, okay, well, this person's going to, put a basketball group in, it would still be at the discretion of the select board to say yes or no. Doesn't just give blanket approval for anybody to go in there, dig a hole and put a basketball hoop in.
No, we have a bylaw that prohibits anybody from digging in town property. I forget why that went through. Somebody was concerned about up in the common
They didn't want anybody digging in the North Common.
with metal detectors,
Yeah.
so.
Who does this go to for the record, so it's kept? Well, either way, we'll put it on, we'll see how it goes, if there's an
If
issue.
it needs to be looked into, it can always be taken off, but for now, it has the appearance that it's met the standards. But we can find out if there is a requirement to have those proper forms before for the signatures or not.
I think we,
Because
yeah.
It's strange that you don't have to have the language attached to it, you know, normally when you get it, you have the language attached to it, then all your signatory forms come with it, that way everybody's reading the same thing. And I don't know if that's a required thing to have.
Right.
We verify these signatures from people in town, but we don't know what they've signed for.
We're not necessarily sure, but I'm guessing it was,
It could have been for a free ice cream social every Sunday on the common, and everybody signed it, and then they swap out their paper with it. Without a signatory page leading, you don't know what they were signing for.
I do also would like to follow up to find out how many times someone can come before the town to request a particular article that is consistently based on the same basis or reasoning.
I don't think there's a limit to that.
Yeah. think
I
as
know
long
they
as
can't do
people
it
are
with certain
right.
like zoning bylaws. If it fails, you gotta take a year or two off. You can't come back right away, and she's been on the warrant 3 meetings in a row on this
Well,
general
this is-
topic.
Yeah, but this is different, we're not, first she was talking about changing the zoning bylaws for, you know,
Okay.
use of the property in town, which she's not doing. Now she's trying to give them an alternate place to hopefully have them go to, which clearly this isn't the issue. If the kids are playing basketball at the house, it's because they wanna play basketball at the house. I don't think this is gonna make them move.
Okay.
Um,
Mostly, I just wanna know the answer to that question I had, because I am certain someone's gonna ask me that. I'm not gonna be able to give them the answer.
I don't think so. I mean, just because there's no prohibition in the wording that says, hey, if you get 100 signatures on something, it goes on the town meeting warrant. As long as she's still able to find 100 people that are willing to sign off on it, we're kind of obligated to put it on, I guess. But I
Okay.
guess I could defer to Ellen to get a better answer.
And the warrant period's open to place stuff in the warrant, so I don't think they're required to get a signatory page and have it done in that time frame. But I believe they should have gotten a signatory page. I don't care if they did it in July 2nd. As long as they have all that time to fill it on a proper signatory page, then those are verified, because all this is verifying that the people signed and live here. It doesn't verify what they signed for. And I gotta believe that that's required. It doesn't have to be pulled within the warrant period, but that page has to be pulled and used, I would think, to be valid to that article. Because like I said, they literally could have walked around saying, we're gonna do free ice cream Sundays every Sunday in the common during concerts.
Yeah.
And people say, oh, that sounds like a great idea, it's just for the kids, 12 and under, free ice cream. And everybody signs it. Then they just print up their page and stack it to the signatures and hand it in. Doesn't mean that's what people signed for.
I brought the same concern, but you know, it's kind of like one of those, you're submitting it under the pains and penalties of perjury. So, unless you're willing to perjure yourself by submitting false signatures,
Yeah.
so.
And the other
Doesn't-
question
doesn't
is
stop
it
people.
something if it's not necessarily a state law, if we felt it was appropriate, we could make it a bylaw?
Yeah, changing the requirements.
And then we
for
just gotta make
meetings
sure
is tough.
the forms are available.
Changing a meeting laws would be tough, yeah, the requirements, because those are set pretty strictly by the state. We could change it, but I think we have a hard time getting it through, unless.
That's why I'm
unless we
asking to
find
look
this is
into
a-
it, so for future, if we think it's important,
But if
we
we
do
find this
it.
is a loophole, this is a
Mm.
possibility, I mean, sometimes they just say, no, if they're giving their word and it's on a penalty of perjury, that's good enough for me. which unfortunately not everyone's honest, so you don't know that that really is good enough, but.
And not everybody is gathering all the signatures themselves. They could have 5 people out there getting signatures, and they'll come back to one person. That one person says, I trust all these 5, but one of them never left his living room.
We don't
There's
know.
a lot to it where, like you're saying, pains of penalty and perjury is only falling on the person that actually signed the sheet submitting it. But there might have been other factors involved, and in a day and age today where people walk up to the door and say, I'm with National Grid, can I come in? And then they try to steal your whole house and everything.
I just
There are
find
people like that, so I'd rather
I
just,
find it unlikely that the state doesn't have this covered for signatory page. I find it very unlikely that you could walk around with a clipboard and just gather signatures and tell them what it's for, without having some sort of appropriate form for it.
Now,
It doesn't seem like that.
when I was discussing this with the town clerk, she noted that, you know, when people submit these signatory pages, they could submit one with names printed on them. They don't even need to be hand signatures, but it's just a matter of contact, you know, if somebody was to challenge it and the registrar's contacted that person, asked them, did you sign this? And they say no, then you
Oh, wow.
basically then you would go after them,
okay.
so.
So apparently they're pretty lenient on the process, which is probably because they want to make sure people aren't pushed out of the process.
Right.
So I can understand where they're coming from, like the other extreme.
Right, and if you pull papers and they give you a fixed time, or, you know, a deadline for which you draw the signatures by, that's difficult. But if they were allowed to pull a signatory page and have an open-ended period to gather signatures, so they could prepare for a whole year for town meeting, and bring it through if they wanted, you know, from town meeting to now half a year, that would make sense. But it's so hard to believe they can just gather signatures without having a header on the page, a signer page that says what it is.
Yeah, and I can,
Each page normally has it printed up top, and then has the language is here, and then the signatures are below it and on the back. Each page is the same way.
and when you need more signatures, you have that same page.
You have 10
So
of
that,
the-
again,
10 of
the
those
same
pages.
statement is,
I agree. It's-
okay, I
it
got
should
you.
be.
All right.
So, if not, we can try to make recommended change and see what happens at the state level with it, but
Okay, so that's Article 10. Did we vote on that, or,
no.
well, we might as well vote on it,
Motion
just to
to-
say that we agree that we can't stop it.
I don't think we voted, I think we motioned, but
No.
not voted, correct?
Motion to place it on the warrant.
Was there
Call for a
second?
vote.
Aye.
Oh,
Aye.
call for a vote.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Okay, so that's the warrant articles that were submitted. Now I would like to discuss what we believe may or may not be warrant articles that the Board of Selectmen need to add. One would be an article regarding marijuana retail tax.
Yeah, so it's the adoption of MGL 64N, Section 3.
MGL what?
64N, Section 3.
Section 3.
So we'd be adopting that?
Yeah.
And does that say you can just vote up to, like, choose up to 3%?
Up to 3%, yeah.
Would then
It's like
that
with
become
the-
a policy as to choose whether it's 1%, 2%, 3%? Or do we need to add in the actual
I think
specific?
there's specific language. It says adoption of MGL 64-3 at a 3% sales tax rate.
Okay.
I did see a couple model bylaws or model adoption bylaws on it. Let's see if I can get the right wording.
Okay. Don't get me wrong, I'm not proposing giving them a break. So if 3% is the max right now, I'm like, give me the 3%.
So adopting Mass General Law 64 and Section 3 and 3% tax rate.
Okay. Next one, and we gotta figure out how to properly number this to fit it into the bylaw statutes, but I think these are both general. I just don't know which section to reference right now. Marijuana,
Local licensing procedure.
yeah,
local
despite the
licensing.
fact, we're not licensing, it's the host community agreement.
Oh, the host.
So we're just,
Retail marijuana, HCA.
Okay, marijuana host community agreement, process and procedures?
Yep.
And
Even just process.
again, it's a general topic, we can clean it up and make it sound better if we feel like it
Well,
before then.
we could say host community agreement, something just like that, topics to be covered. Or inclusive,
Right, because this is where I would suggest we
Inclusive
put in
language.
the minimum 2 public hearings, a minimum of 2 weeks apart,
right.
you know.
I would
This
say
is
you
where
have
we'd
the
write
option.
in the
Yeah.
sharing of planning board, select board, and the voting process of approval of community impact items.
I'm just think, just to throw it out there, I'm thinking that, you know, under the marijuana bylaws, you're allowed to create a local licensing, a local license on top of
you
just
can't?
state license. So I'm wondering maybe if it's a general bylaw that's, you know, it's a, as a local license, the first section of it is host community negotiations. And then maybe
And the
state.
following topics will be
issuance.
subject to the host community agreement negotiations.
Right.
And then we just list them instead of trying to put a fancy language to carry it.
Yeah.
So all the things that you guys.
So we could stick to marijuana licensing,
That's what.
and then everything else falls under based on how we break out the subtopics. Okay,
And the host agreement shall address the following topics, but not limited to. Shall address but not limited to these topics, so we can add more if we see fit in the agreement, that's by the agreement.
Yeah, the way the state licenses, it's that they need to have the host community agreement in place, but the state can grant a license before a local license is given. So you could say that you need to negotiate the host, right, in the bylaw, you could say that the host community agreement, you have to negotiate that before you go to the state. After the state grants their approval, then you'll get the final local license, the local approval or something. like that.
yeah, you start here, you end here,
Right.
and then you can go start your building processes and
No building
ministerial
permit shall be
permitting.
pulled until.
And then you can have a license fee.
Yep.
Right.
I'll see if I can find any other towns that.
You probably would have to take licensing fees and make them similar to or the same as alcohol license fees.
Which we need.
Or
to-
if we just do that, then it's standard.
Which we need to address, because those are woefully low for alcohol fees.
I don't know what is that a state identified licensing fee or is that a local fee on alcohol licenses?
For local fee?
For giving out the ABCC retail store license, package store license, is that a state says it's this or is it local
Right,
choice?
it's the local option on is basic, or the local fee is whatever the town sets it at. It could, you know,
Mhm.
basically sets that based off market.
Oh, okay.
But the state pretty much has like a blanket $200 application fee for basically everything.
Okay. All right, so
Most
we can
towns-
review the
most
both
towns
and
for
if we
liquor
need to.
license, $1,000 is a cheap liquor license, not $125. There's a lot of money in alcohol. And if it's not that much, they don't wanna do it,
Yeah,
then.
but
then
they don't do that in towns like our size, right? That's more city and
We'll have to
bigger
get-
communities
we'll
that
have to
do
do
that.
Sounds like Groton with 3,000.
Yeah, but there's still 2 or 3 bigger than us, right? Groton's like 10,000, right? People.
They're double us, but they're 30 times the fee.
We got,
Oh, wow.
we'll do comparative, yeah.
Wow.
As
We
for
need
the-
to
as
look
for
at
the
it.
surrounding
It's,
communities.
I'm sorry.
well, part of it is.
But I don't wanna raise it so much because that's a big impact on our smaller businesses. And I don't wanna
It
beat
is
them
and
out
it
of
isn't.
town.
If someone's selling some beer or something on the side and they don't make a lot of money at it, well, they just drop the license, that partial license of the fee, and they'll go to a bigger store, and the bigger store will pick up the fee.
Yeah, but that's my point. I don't like forcing small guys out of a
I don't think
market.
it's forcing anyone out of the market. I think $100 is a joke for an alcohol license.
What's the impact to us?
Well, if it was $1,000.
What's it cost us to give them that license?
It's not a matter of what it costs us, it's a matter of bringing ways to bring revenue.
It's an administrative fee. It's supposed to be supported by what it costs you, not just because it's a market value that it has become. Don't get me wrong, I mean, it was originally built to say, it cost me to issue, administer, and then we also have the inspection fees for any of the restaurants.
Well, I mean, to go through the planning board for these things and have the site set for it, I mean, if you look at the total things that are done for this, for locations and for everything that goes into it, you could try to develop a man-hour cost impact on the town for how much goes into it, but I still think $100 is woefully low.
Okay.
Doesn't
And don't
mean
get
we
me
should-
wrong,
doesn't
I'm
mean we
not
should be
trying to
3,000
say
or
you're
4,000.
wrong, I'm just trying to think
And I
it
don't even
out.
think we need to go to 1,000, but I think it should be, multiples of hundreds for what the fee ought to be.
Just look at what our,
Yeah,
what
look
our surrounding towns and everybody else that's comparable is, issue. Try to stay in line.
Well, a lot of towns do, they limit the number of permits they'll give out for alcohol sales, or establishments that have liquor licenses in general. We have quite a
It's a
few.
state quota. It's just-
We have quite a few in town.
Yeah, the state sets that limit based off of population. And if you wanna go over that, you actually have to get a legislative, or an act of the legislature to give you a special license over and above your quota. So, I know that was something that they looked at as originally with the Municipal Modernization Act to take that away from the state and put it back in the town's hands, but the state took that out of that bill. So, it's been one of those fights. They classified as economic development and everything like that to say, give the power back to the towns, but the ABCC doesn't want to give it up.
I don't control it quite as tight as New
Anybody that
Hampshire.
lives more than 20 miles from me, of course you don't want to give it up. I'm big on the local. I'm not a big fan of every other step above us trying to say that. That's my opinion. Anyway, so we've got a marijuana retail tax, we got a marijuana licensing bylaw that we need to put on as a separate article. Do we think we may need to, are the fees for alcohol a bylaw, or is that a policy?
It's a Board of Selectmen adoption. I don't think you need to go.
Okay.
I'll double check.
Because I'd rather put that on here if we gotta make sure that it matches whatever we do for marijuana, so it looks appropriate to the state when they're like,
Mhm.
don't favor one industry over the other. So if we need to, we're gonna need that as a bylaw. Because I think it would be an amending an existing bylaw thing. To your best understanding, if there is something such as this marijuana retail tax that requires a public hearing before it goes to town for vote, special town meeting, does that public hearing normally have to happen a certain number of days before?
I don't think so.
Or is it just a certain number of days of notice before the meeting?
Yeah,
So in
just
other
the
words,
number, the notice.
okay. Because we may either just think about it and then next week when we meet, set up that date to have the public hearing, because we've got so many dates eating up the rest of the month. Like next week is straight out.
That's crazy.
And that doesn't even include setting up future joint planning board meetings to really hash out the two bylaws, and we need to work on ours.
Let's just provisionally say that these will probably be on November 19th, public hearings.
Public hearings.
Yeah, so I'm just thinking if you
So we
say,
need to have it ready before then, so we have
if you said
two
that
meetings before then.
15th, yeah, 15th your next meeting, meeting after that's November 5th. I mean, you have the interviews the next week. Possibly a DPW between then and the 5th, but then the 5th you have another meeting, and then the 19th would be your meeting after that. So basically talking 3 weeks after that's the special town meeting.
Unless we hold a special meeting night for this hearing, so it's not dragged on top of a selectmen's meeting. So we're not sitting here.
Well, it's a public hearing.
But we can have the public hearing in a separate, stand on your own.
If we're available, we could do it the last week, the 26th of November.
November 26th.
If you're gonna be around, I mean, I know
Yeah.
the
If you're-
Thursday before is Thanksgiving, but that Monday after Thanksgiving is not something I my family takes off for. So
Right.
I'll be here.
I'll be,
It's a public
I'll be
hearing to
here.
give people a general understanding of what we're gonna do, but we're gonna pretty much repeat the thing at special town meeting.
that stands in its own, so people can talk about it.
Right.
And only it, so we're not sitting here for a 3-hour meeting, delaying ourselves by however long that takes, or making them wait 3 hours and 2 hours for our meeting to get to it. So I'd just suggest maybe do exactly that, the 29th, if that was the date we said, or 26th.
And when you speak to Mr. Beard about this, only include these articles that require a public hearing? Not that we wouldn't discuss some of it, but let's not make it more than we have to. If you don't mind,
No,
because that gives us a little more time to continue with maybe like, if the marijuana licensing bylaw doesn't require the public hearing, then that gives us more to keep on the drafting and getting it right before we go to a special town meeting.
So if we have to do the public hearing on the warrant itself.
That's only the week before, right?
We've done that the week before, I think.
Okay,
So we could do that on the 4th.
December 4th?
We were gonna have a, that's a week out.
Right.
That's when we were gonna have the meeting, and the only reason we didn't is because of timing wise, we thought it was good. We just didn't have it because of the tax issue.
I know traditionally though, they would do it on the 5th, the Wednesday, because they usually always did it on the same night Finance Committee had their meeting. Because that was like the last activity Finance Committee did before going into a meeting, and then they kind of refreshed themselves on the budgeting for the next after that. But I'll leave, because Finance
Okay.
Committee,
We still have to, yeah, the finance.
for the
committee.
warrant, the Finance Committee usually is involved with setting up that public hearing. Since we do have finance items on
We
here
don't
now.
have to set that date yet, then.
Okay.
Let's let finance have their input and see when they'd rather have it.
Right.
But it should be
okay.
that week before.
4th, 5th, or 6th.
And they've got a limited membership now, so we may need to know when as many of them can make it, and that might be,
Yeah, let them pick.
Okay.
It'd probably be at the senior center like we normally do it.
can we imagine anything else that would either need to fall into a different marijuana bylaw article between these two items? Is there a third one? Are we comfortable with whatever the existing marijuana bylaw thing about what was it, $100 fine for smoking in public?
Yeah,
Is that
that's on the
appropriate? Is that something we would wanna put on here if we thought it helps with the overall thing, saying this is how we plan to address this? And so we've got all the bylaws in
Well,
place.
I think, given that marijuana is clearly different than cigarettes, I think the fine for smoking in public, which could put you at, or we could further specify school playgrounds and the other areas where kids might be, that the penalty, the fine should be pretty severe if you're gonna go sit and smoke in a playground, or at a school grounds or something like that. So whatever the fine is for smoking on out of these areas, marijuana smoking in specific areas where children can be present should be much, much more harsh. Smoke it at home, smoke it in your own time and place, but not around kids, period. And I would support a $500 fine.
That's why I was
Smoking
asking,
on
because
playgrounds or near school grounds.
We've met a
or-
point where 500 really makes the point. 100 for a lot of people, it's like parking tickets.
Right.
I'm not,
But still a lot to some people.
I mean, there are people though that if they wanted to make the point, they would say, I don't care about that $100. I'm still gonna do what I want in your park, and then
Right. And you
do
don't
we wanna
see-
step it, so like first infraction's the 500, second infraction within a calendar year? At what point can we bring it to what the state might allow
I was gonna
versus
say,
criminal
we
versus
need
civil?
to see what the state would allow us to put on those and probably target pretty close to max for multiple offenses. But, if someone's gonna smoke marijuana in their house and their kids are in the house, we don't know about that, there's not a lot we can do about it unless someone actually finds it and sees it. And those same people might be inclined to go to the playground with their kids and smoke it. But, there's other kids there too, and there's other people around, and it's,
The state has a lot of stuff on that, but go ahead.
Yeah, we've already adopted 63-1 for public consumption of marijuana. Fine for that's $300.
Okay.
And so we can add a secondary offense that makes it higher Or does it already have a second offense there?
Just a fine for violation of this chapter shall be $300 for each offense.
Okay.
Well, we could modify that possibly and say $300 for first offense, $500 for second, $1,000 for third. And see if that will fly with the state when we make that modification to it.
Yeah, but you
Step
may
up
need to
quickly.
put a timeline between the offenses, like a second offense within a
No.
calendar year.
There's no
Yeah, because you
timeline
can't
on-
hold something for a lifetime.
There's no timeline.
In
on
7
the
years,
lines.
if they do their third, that you can't count something from 6 years ago.
It's considered.
I just mean you're gonna have a harder time getting the AG's office to support that, because they're really looking at marijuana as a nuisance, not a major health hazard.
Yeah,
Well, it is around.
So that's why they're
children.
making the decision.
It's considered a non-criminal disposition under our current, there's no criminal, or there's no,
That's where the municipal
Criminal
hearing officer has to
Yeah,
play a
it's
role,
just,
right?
it's just a felony.
right.
It's still a federal violation, it's still a felony, no matter what the state says. So to that end, we can certainly take it more seriously around kids. If people wanna do what they wanna do, that's their business. But someone has to make sure that the kids aren't being exposed to it.
So right now, we just say 300 in general public.
Yeah,
Well-
general public is considered, any street, sidewalk, public way, footway, passageway, stairs, bridge, park, playground, beach, recreation area, boat landing, public building, school, school grounds, cemetery, or parking lot, or any, or upon any place to which the public has right of access, has invitees or licenses.
So, we can make it more stringent if we wanted to say if this occurred within 500 feet of, it
Well-
goes from 300 to 1,000. So in other words, if you do smoke it in a public way within 500 feet of the same definition the state uses, so we don't make it worse. Schools, I think they still say churches, I don't know, I don't remember what the state's saying right now. And elementary school, things like that, then the fine's $1,000.
But schools are already covered in there on school grounds, and on playgrounds are already covered in there, so we're.
No, that's saying 300 if you're on Route 122 down by Carter Stevens, sitting on the side of the road.
But it says.
And it's also 300 if you're at the school.
Right.
I'm saying, well, if you're at the school, make it 1,000, but if you're up by Carter Stevens, it's 300. In other words, that's what we can try to, like what you're saying, if you wanna make it worse when you're near kids,
About,
there's possibly a way.
maybe we focus on trying to get the licensing stuff, and then, since we have, at least have it on the books, you know.
So,
And then.
that could be
when
an
we-
annual
when we
town
start for
meeting
animal,
article if we
we'll start-
want.
we'll start-
Yeah,
I'm
I
just
would
looking
say
at,
so.
we have a limited time, and we have to look at a lot of stuff.
And the wording in that, I think I think we gotta be careful if we pull portions that we just said 300, then we say them again at 500, it's like almost like a double jeopardy. You have to pull it out of this section and put it in that, so we can eliminate schools, playgrounds, and that from that bylaw. Modify this to remove these from these lines and add a line for the following locations, it would be $1,000 fine.
Yeah.
But we need to pull them out of section A and put them into a section B. And so we sort of modify that as two lists, an A and B list. But like you said, another time.
Criminal disposition versus felony
Okay.
charge.
So with that said, we've identified 2 potential articles. So Article 11 would be the adopt MGL 64 in Section 3 marijuana retail tax
At a rate of 3%.
at a rate of 3%. Do we have a motion for that one?
Motion to approve Article 11.
Second.
Call for a vote?
Aye.
Aye. The next one is Article 12, marijuana licensing, generically stated as such.
And we're gonna cover the host agreement and local license both of that. Is our intent.
That's how I see it.
Okay. Motion to approve Article 12.
Second.
Call for a vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. I have nothing more regarding the warrant articles. Do you guys have anything else you would like to speak to on that?
On that? No.
Okay, so let's stop the warrant articles discussion. November 26th is what we're pushing on that public hearing?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have something else you'd like to bring up?
I just
Charlie?
wanted to mention this thing on the Eagle Scout. I quite often go, I can't go, we got a short notice here. I was wondering if we just couldn't invite him in and recognize him at a meeting.
Oh. I'm more than okay with that, and if interested, maybe he could come to the 15th, the meeting next Monday. I also won't be able to make that.
No, I can't. I'm out of state, but,
So we traditionally draw up a letter for them of some kind with that?
yeah, or
Maybe we ask-
certificate or something.
I assume that, state senate rep local will already be there for that on this day. I would assume,
Yeah, usually go to the Eagle Scouts.
so they should already have that.
Okay.
That's-
So yes, I would
Literally
make a
this-
motion, what Charlie suggested, that we send out an invite to invite him to one of our meetings so we can give him some recognition, maybe get him a plaque or an award.
Certificate.
Yeah. So the Stetson School, Monday, October 29th at 10:30 in the morning is a dedication for the renovated historic Pevere bell tower. Does anybody else have a better understanding of how that was pronounced historically? Pevere bell tower. This will be at the campus green at 455 South Street, Barre, Mass. It's a general invitation for those to arrive. October 29th, 10:30 in the morning, that's a Monday. I will not be able to attend, but I definitely think we should, reach out and just say thank you for the invite if you can't attend. Them keeping that whole bell tower was something that the town pretty much insisted, so for them to have brought it back and then do the dedication, I think it's important for us to show that we appreciate it. I'm not saying anybody has to go, I'm just talking about the invitation's been made. I appreciate that they're inviting us. I'm just not able to make that date.
Appear to be a work day for me, so I won't be able to make it. We can certainly draft a letter.
Doesn't look like I can.
Yeah, that's good.
Certainly draft a letter on letterhead and send it to them, something that we all sign personally. So I have, and maybe draft a letter thanking them for it and thanking them for the invite.
Yeah.
I can go on behalf of the board, I guess.
If you have the time, that
And-
probably wouldn't hurt.
And we should all sign the letter though, so it's signed in person, not just on behalf of us. But it's, work days are work days, that would kill a whole day work, so I can't do it.
Thank you. Do we have something else that I'm missing that was on the agenda? You guys recall anything
I think
specific?
it was just you have to formally, I don't know if you formally took a vote to change the date
We
for the
got,
11th.
we have to change the
Oh,
date.
right.
Yeah.
We didn't formally do that. So, all right, I guess I'll make the motion to change the date of the special town meeting to December 11th, 2018, starting at 6:30 PM.
I will second.
Call for a vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. Thanks for the reminder. Anybody have anything else, or are we gonna be good? Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Call for vote.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
We lost all of our viewerships.